Hey everybody, my name is Eric Larkin with REMAX Solutions, and if you plan on buying a house here in the Cocoa Beach area or really anywhere in Brevard, there's a good chance the home you end up buying is going to be over 30 years old, and if you want to get homeowner's insurance on the property, you're going to need to have a 4-point inspection. I had an opportunity to sit down with Adam Herrera, owner of the Florida Home Inspection Bureaus, to learn more about the 4-point inspection and what it entails. Let's join the conversation.
So your 4-point inspection is an insurance industry driven report and created by the insurance industry. It covers 4 major areas of the home. It covers your HVAC, so that's your interior and exterior heating and cooling, your roof, your electric system, and your plumbing.
Okay.
So of those things, the insurance companies are looking for very specific information relating to those components of the home. So that insurance industry report, that 4-point inspection, is designed by them to uncover that information. So for our clients' knowledge, we work for our clients. We don't work for the insurance company per se. We provide them with exactly what that report asks for, no more, no less. We're trying to provide the easiest route for insurance, but also providing the correct information for the insurance provider so that they can qualify you and put you into a correct policy, basically.
So do you want to go through the 4 points? Like
Yeah.
the air conditioner, what are some things
Yeah.
that you look for to do the HVAC part of the 4-point?
So the HVAC part of the 4-point, we want to see, one, that it's in place.
Important.
Number 2, the big thing with the HVAC is actually not the air conditioning portion, it's the heat portion. In the state of Florida, it is actually required by insurance that every home has a heat source, whether it's central heat or some other type of heat source that is required for insurance purposes. So we look at age of system, and we look at whether it's currently functioning and functioning efficiently. And those are the biggest things. Usually in our environment, the age of the system, we usually see about 12 to 15 years of serviceable life out of most HVAC systems. And that's about what we can provide. We can provide that information on the report, even if it is past that lifespan, if it's operating efficiently, we can note that, and then it becomes up to the insurance provider to make the decision whether that's an insurable component or not, basically. The only time that the HVAC typically is an issue with your insurance is when it is not functioning. So
that kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
And the roof component of it.
Okay.
Is that similar, everything that was covered like in the wind mitigation report, or is that something a little different that they look at?
It's a great question because it is something a little bit different. The wind mitigation report has nothing to do with the actual condition of the roof or its serviceable life.
Okay.
Now, the 4-point inspection, that is basically the main focus. It focuses on current damage. It has a couple similarities. The similarities are it'll ask the type of roof geometry and roof covering, but then it focuses on its serviceable life, how old we believe the roof currently is, and any damages, active leaks, things of that nature that we're seeing.
And then for the age of the roof, how do you verify that?
We verify that either through our experience and basically the inspection itself, or we pull a permit history on the property to verify when that roof was last replaced, and that's usually the best way for us to do it.
Awesome.
The roof really needs to have 5 years of serviceable life left for most insurance providers to actually insure the home. Anything less than that 5 years, most insurance providers are going to request or require a roof replacement at that point in time.
Does the age of a flat roof have any difference in regards to that you're aware of?
It does. Okay. It does. Your flat roof does not last as long. Okay. Your shingled roof usually is about a 20-year lifespan. The flat roof is about a 15-year lifespan. Okay. So depending on when things were installed, etc., if you have a flat roof, you can expect to be replacing that sooner than a asphalt shingle or a metal roof, etc.
Awesome. That's some great information. All right, so then we're on to plumbing?
Yes, plumbing. All right, so plumbing. What they're looking for in the plumbing section are the type of plumbing supply you have, both to the structure, so basically from your municipal to the structure itself, then to your branch supply plumbing, so what actually supplies your sinks, your toilet, etc. Then they're also looking for your main drain line, and then your component drain line, so at your sinks and toilets, things of that nature. So they want to know the type of materials, whether you have PVC, cast iron, copper, things of that nature. Then they want to make sure that everything's intact, everything's functional. We don't have any current leaks. Everything drains well.
Okay.
They require specific pictures of every, let's say, every supply area. So underneath every sink.
Like the shut-off valves?
Yeah, so the shut-off valves and the drains underneath your sinks. And then depending on the carrier, sometimes, like for example with Citizens, they require several additional photos of all of the valves in the house, supply lines, etc.
Okay.
But for the most part, we're looking to see if there's any bubbling, any gurgling, any backflow when we're flushing those toilets. We're running your supplies, flooding your drains, making sure everything flows well, making sure we don't see any active leaks.
All right, that's good. That's all good information. And then last but not least, we got the electrical.
All right, so electrical is typically the section along with roof that gives most insurance companies or providers the cause for pause, if you will. There are several electrical panels that, based on the brand, are frowned upon or sometimes even uninsurable. The panels, when you're out looking for homes, or if you own a home right now that has a Federal Pacific panel, a Zinsco panel, a Sylvania panel, or a Challenger panel, those are typically frowned upon, or at least by A-rated insurance carriers, they tend to not cover those panels. You may need to replace that panel in order to get insurance bound for that particular property. The issues that they have with them, most of those brands that I named are no longer in business, so you can't find replacement components, and the majority of those brands have had issues with their components. It's not that they've been recalled or anything like that, but some of them have known fire issues or fire hazards, and that is why those are uninsurable panels for the most part.
I know if you just Google Federal Pacific panels, you'll see a lot of scary stuff that comes up, and that's why I know that's one of the big ones with the insurance companies. And
absolutely.
Not that I see as many panels as you, but that's the one I see quite often in a lot of homes.
And that's true. Some of those panels have what they call a stab lock breaker system, and that stab lock breaker system actually sends a stab to interrupt the electrical current, and that is how they trip the breaker. Okay. Well, that stab is a little metal pin, and as you can imagine, introducing a little metal pin into an electrical current is not the best idea. Can create scorches, arcs, burns, etc. The other issue is, on some of those panels, they have aluminum bus bars, and that aluminum bus bar, aluminum expands and contracts at a greater rate than copper. It also carries vibration a little bit more, so your breakers tend to start to loosen, and you'll see them start to slide actually down that bus bar, and that's what will create arcs, scorches, burns inside the panel, and that's a major fire hazard. On the theme of aluminum, the other thing that you run into with older beachside homes is aluminum wiring. That is typically frowned upon by most A-rated carriers. Mm-hmm. There are some carriers who will not insure any home with aluminum wiring. There are some carriers that will insure a home with aluminum wiring provided they have Alumicons installed. An Alumicon is a small purple coupler that takes your aluminum wire and basically pigtails a copper wire to that for attachment to your lug or to your outlet. So rendering any of the vibration or any of the heat conduction or expansion and contraction of the metals safe, or at least deemed safe by the insurance industry.
So if you are buying a house and one of these breaker panels come up where there is aluminum wiring, it's certainly not detrimental to the sale, but it is a point that you could do some negotiating with the owner to see if you could either have these repaired prior to closing or get a credit, and you can handle it after closing as well.
That's a great point. Any of the deficiencies typically that we find, while they may give you trouble with insurance on the home, the important thing is that the majority of them are fixable. They're a remediable issue. They're not something that will prevent you from moving forward, as long as you are able to either remedy the fix or negotiate, like Eric said, with the seller to remedy it before the sale takes place.
Because I know some of the insurance carriers that I work with, if an issue like that does come up, They could still bind the policy, but then within 30 days of the closing, you'll have to get these items repaired and get them addressed, because the insurance company will then send their own independent inspector out just to verify the 4-point inspection and everything's in line, so they can bind the policy officially then.
And we always try and educate our clients about anything that we find that may give them problems with insurance, whether it's a panel that is a brand that is frowned upon, aluminum wiring, age of roof, etc. We try and educate our clients during the inspection process, so that way they're prepared, they're doing their due diligence, so they don't get to that closing table or a day before closing and find out that they don't have insurance and now their deal can't close and things have gone totally sideways. We want to make sure and rectify that well beforehand, so everything's smooth. We close, you guys get your keys and you move in.
Everybody's happy then. So I think we've covered all of the topics for the 4-point, for the wind mitigation. Yep. One thing for plumbing I'd like to back up on is polybutylene plumbing.
Ah, okay.
What can you tell us about that?
Okay, so polybutylene piping is a supply piping. This is a major red flag for most insurance carriers. They will not insure your home if it has polybutylene piping, most insurance providers. What they will do is they may provide you with an insurance policy, but that insurance policy most likely has a rider on it that says they're not going to insure you based on a water damage or a plumbing leak due to that polybutylene piping. So you would definitely want to check with your agent, make sure that you're fully insured if you do have polybutylene piping. But that polybutylene piping is a gray supply piping, and it was used in place of PVC or copper. Usually we see it in manufactured homes in the 70s, and then we also see them in some more recent homes from the late 90s, early 2000s. There chances are that you may have polybutylene piping, but the issue with that piping is over time now we've experienced failure due to municipal water supply corroding the piping from the inside out. So the minerals and everything, the fluoride that are in the municipal water supply have a poor chemical reaction to that polybutylene piping. And the scary thing is you don't see that reaction, you don't see the corrosion, you don't see any weak points because it's happening from the inside of the pipe. So by the time you find out, it's already too late. Yeah. If you own a home with polybutylene piping, it's not an if, it's a when it's going to fail. Our recommendation is for replacement when we find something like that.
I was just going to use that quote, because the plumbers that I've spoken with on that, they always say that it's not if it's going to fail, it's always when it's going to fail. So if you have the polybutylene, am I saying it right?
Yeah, I think
Close enough.
Close enough.
If you have that in your house, you definitely need to talk to a plumber about getting that replaced and replumbed.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Adam, I can't thank you enough for your time. I think you brought a lot of great information.
Thank
so
you.
remember, if you're buying a house, you definitely need a home inspection. If the home was built prior to 1989, you'll need the 4-point inspection to get your homeowner's insurance, and you also need the wind mitigation to see if you can qualify for some credits and some discounts.
Absolutely. Eric, thanks for having us, as always.
Appreciate it very much.
Thank you, sir.
All right, everybody. I'm Eric Larkin with REMAX Solutions. You are?
Adam Marrara with Florida Home Inspection Bureau.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Cocoa Beach Insider. I'll see you on the next show. Perfect. Done. Look at that.
Look at that.